today the section we're going to go through, at least I'm ambitious about it, is rather large. It's from ayah number 25 all the way to ayah number 37. If we don't get there, I'll be okay, but at least we'll try to get there. This is the section of the people of the left hand. Basically, that entire section is dedicated to the people of the left hand. And so it begins in contrast with the previous section where Allah says now, وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِشِمَالِهِ. As for the one who's been given his book in his left. The word shimal comes from shamala or ishtimal, which means inclusion. The left hand is considered secondary when you're holding something and you want to include the second hand in to be able to grab it properly. That's what became the shimal, because it helps you become to do shumul of something, to include something in your grasp, right? So it's actually considered in that sense secondary, right? And by saying he's been given the book, or somebody did something with their shimal, what that actually means in Arabic is they didn't take it that seriously. It wasn't worth much, because if something's worth something, you put your right hand on it, right? So وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِشِمَالِهِ. As for the one who's been handed his book in his left, فَيَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أُوتَ كِتَابِيَهْ. Then he will call out, what has happened? Or layta is one of those words in Arabic. It's a word for regret. I'll tell you the etymology in a minute, but it's very hard to translate. In older English, they had things like woe unto me or woe is me, right? But woe is not the same woe now, right? Woe in Shakespearean English had a certain effect. It doesn't have the same, like no teenager goes around when, their dads grounded them for a week, or your mom took your cell phone away. Woe unto me, hast thou not takeneth my iPhone Pro Max. So the word woe doesn't have a serious impact anymore. It did in Shakespearean English, right? So what does it mean? We'll look into that when the time comes, inshallah, a little bit deeper. But one thing I will tell you is, as technology has improved, the human ability to articulate themselves has declined, right? So there are studies now about even handwriting. Human handwriting is declining rapidly, right? So adults are writing like third graders used to write, right? Teenagers will see me just write something. Wow, you can write like that? I was like, second grade. But now that looks like calligraphy now. Why? Because there's a decline in linguistic ability, because we're handing so much of the linguistic work over to machines, right? The same way emotions or language is not as rich as it used to be once. Why? Because, for example, if you want to express frustration, you can just take a round yellow face with steam coming from the nose and send it to somebody. Instead of expressing frustration with words, you could just send them an emoji, right? And you can also now, because we're in the world of rapid communication, we don't even write the full sentence. I mean, used to be all right, then it became okay, then it's become K, right? So the abbreviation of language and the misspelling of words, that's the common thing now, right? And so language is going through a tremendous decline. And this is not something that happened after social media. It got exaggerated after social media. But even before then, language has been declining for some time now. And actually, some of the ancient languages of the world are very quickly dying. There are many languages that are dying. By the way, you'd be interested to know, South Asians might be interested to know, Urdu and Bangla is two of the languages that are dying. They're dying. And so I experienced this firsthand. I have up to an 8th grade level education in Urdu. That's all I learned when I was in Saudi. I was in a Pakistani school. Before that, I knew some German because I was born in Germany, but that's gone. 9. But my Urdu is, it's 8th grade education. So it's not college level Urdu. It's not even high school Urdu. It's 8th grade Urdu, right? And then my family came here after that. So I haven't had continued Urdu education since. And that was in 1865. So it's been a while. So last year I went back and I gave lectures in Urdu in different cities in Pakistan. I went on like 22 different universities over the course of a month, right? And people coming up to me telling me, "Aapki Urdu bahut nawabi hai. You speak like ancient Indian aristocrat Urdu." I do? I don't think I did. Because 8th grade, from my time until now, the language has been impacted so deeply by, it's got Anglo influence now, and it's got Hindi influence now. So now people are coming up to me and saying, "Ye bada acha hoega." And I was like, "What's hoega?" I knew a hoga, but this is a new hoega. So, so the language started kind of, breaking apart, and the insertion of outside words becomes more and more common, right? This is happening with Arabic too, by the way. The Arabs should be very sad about that, and the entire Ummah should be sad about that. If we lose the language from a mother tongue perspective, then there's a loss of natural language, right? So, as a result of that, the Quran's language seems artificial. So when it says something like "Ya laytani," or from 150 years ago in English, somebody says "Woe is me," that sounds odd to you now, right? Because we just don't have words for certain emotions anymore, right? Because we just say "ugh," or "oh man," or "ha." Okay, just think about that. Those aren't even words. "Ha" is not a word. They actually had a word for that in Arabic. Ta'awwuh. Ta'awwuh means to do "oh." All right, so that's a challenge of translating the Quran, because the purpose of translation is it should be able to impact the reader in whatever language it's being translated, right? So that's one of the challenges in ayat like these. But anyway, let's get to the commentary on this ayah. First of all, the reaction, because the reaction when given the book in your right hand was, come, take it, read it, right? He's handing it to his loved ones. لما نظر في كتابه وتذكر قبائح أفعاله خجل منها. When this person saw his book and he saw the ugliest deeds that they had done are there in glaring record, they're humiliated by that. وصار العذاب الحاصل من تلك الخجالة أزيد من عذاب النار. And it's perhaps that humiliation that's even more intense than the punishment of the flames themselves. Like, human beings are pained not just physically, we're also creatures that are pained emotionally, right? So the psychological torture of Jahannam has begun just by a person looking at their deeds. You should keep in mind, this idea of you being emotionally tortured is so powerful that it overrides physical pain. There are two examples of that I can think of in the Quran. One of them is Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam knew that when he's going to go back to the Pharaoh, they're going to call him a liar. They're going to publicly humiliate him. Okay? So he told Allah on the mountain, Rabbi inni akhafu an yukadhibun. Master, I am afraid that they shall call me a liar. And then he made a list of things that he's afraid of. And the fifth thing that he listed, the last and fifth thing he listed was, وَإِنِّي أَخَافُ أَن يَقْتُلُونَ وَلَهُمْ عَلَيَّ ذَنْبٌ فَأَخَافُ أَن يَقْتُلُونَ. They have a crime recorded against me, and I fear that they shall kill me. So his first fear, the first thing that came to his mind to bring up as a state of emergency to God, to Allah, when he's directly in conversation with Allah, is humiliation. And the last item was what? Death. Like that. Just think about what worries him. Because the thing that worries you the most is the one you bring up first, right? Similarly, you see the case of Maryam salamun alayha, who bears Jesus. She gives birth to Isa. And she knows when she comes back to town of that time, the Muslim city, that she was living by the masjid. There was a mihrab. The imam was Zakaria alayhi salam, right? She disappears. And then she comes back, and she comes back with a baby. And everybody knows she's been raised in the masjid. What are people going to say? And you would say, no. These are not kuffar. These are Muslims. Muslims don't talk like that about fellow Muslims. Yeah, we wouldn't know. This is something that used to happen thousands of years ago. We don't have that problem anymore. But anyway, so she's worried that they're going to point the finger at her, tell her that this is an illegitimate child. What have you done? She can't bear the thought of even hearing that stuff. So she says, and it's recorded in Allah's book, Ya laytani mittu qabla hadha. If only I could be dead before this happens. She wished for death instead of humiliation. Like, she wasn't even worried they're going to stone me, they're going to murder me, they're going to hurt me. She just didn't want to face that humiliation. That was it was more acceptable to take death than to take that humiliation. And of course, if you did your own studies, especially those of you that are studying psychology, perpetual humiliation, degradation, feeling suppressed, somebody feeling unheard, humiliated, and if they feel like they're stuck in that situation, it can only go on so long before people commit suicide, right? People even kill themselves without the fear of Allah. That's actually a solution for people, right? There are people that are well off financially or this or that, but now there's a trial that's going to happen and all of their dirty deeds are going to come out. What happens the day before the trial? You find the guy overdosed on some drugs and he's out. Because it's not like they were going to hurt him, but they were going to what? was going to humiliate him, couldn't take it. What is Allah doing here? He's humiliating the person on the left hand. By the way, let's keep the subtext in mind. Why would someone be humiliated? Why would Allah humiliate someone? Because they were in the business of, fill in the blank, humiliating others. Humiliating others. People that got a kick out of, putting other people's laundry out, using vile words against someone, bringing the worst of their deeds to their attention. Like, Fir'aun was trying to humiliate Musa alayhi salam. Didn't you do what you did? فَعَلْتَ فَعَلَتَكَ الَّذِي فَعَلْتَ. You're gonna talk to us? Or the people were humiliating Maryam salamun alayha, right? Or humiliating her. So this idea, every time there's a punishment, you have to keep in mind the punishment reflects the nature of the sin that came before it, right? So these were people, like Allah says in another place in the Quran, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. And humaza, lumaza are qualities of people that speak ill of others and get a kick out of it, basically. They enjoy humiliating others. By the way, this idea of humaza, lumaza in the environment in which we live, where most people aren't even watching social media content, they're reading the humaza, lumaza on underneath in the comment section and getting a kick out of it, right? So for those who do enjoy that trolling, and that's their feed, just let me remind you of something. Allah says, وَفِيكُمْ سَمَّعُونَ لَهُمْ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِالظَّالِمِينَ. Among you are those that are just audiences to those vile people. And Allah knows all wrongdoers. And Allah is saying the people that are making those vile comments are wrongdoers, and the people that are just consuming that are also wrongdoers, right? Because that's what they call engagement nowadays, isn't it? They put those comments there because it gets them more engagement and all of that. Anyway, so the punishment has already begun, and it's humiliating in nature. وَهَذَا يُنَبِّهُكَ عَلَى أَنَّ الْعَذَابَ الرُّوحَانِ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ الْجِسْمَانِ. Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi says, this should make you pay attention that the punishment to the soul is much more intense than the punishment to the body, because the soul wants dignity, right? Now, the mental punishment of receiving the record in your left hand, فَإِنَّ تَرَقَّبَ السُّوءَ عَذَابٌ. تَرَقُّبَ السُّوءَ عَذَابٌ. Another dimension of this is, I've got the book in my left hand. I know something really terrible is coming. تَظُنُّ أَن يُفْعَلَ بِهَا فَاقِرَةٌ. Another place in the Quran. He thinks that it's just going to break his back any moment. Now, if you know something really bad is happening, but it hasn't happened yet, you're in this terrible state, not just of humiliation, but of anguish, of anxiety. When is it going to happen? Are they going to find out? When are they coming? And you can't have a moment of peace. Even if you're not physically in torture, you are living in terrible, terrible anxiety. And anxiety is a debilitating state to be. It can render a person paralyzed, like literally paralyzed, And it's the paralysis that Allah even describes in other places in the Quran when He says things like شَاخِصَةً أَبْصَارُهُمْ. Their eyes are petrified. They're just, or their necks are held back. Like they can't move. Their muscles stiffen up. These are, if you study people that have extreme cases of paranoia or anxiety, those kinds of things, you'll notice that they exhibit these behaviors that Allah is describing people experiencing on Judgment Day. But what's worse about it is, whatever it is that you are anxious about, if you're afraid of something, right? Let's say there's police and some guy knows that they're looking for him, right? And he sees the police right over there. Which way is he going to run? Opposite direction. You know what Allah does on Judgment Day? He gets people to keep their eyes open so they can't blink. The criminals, they have to keep their eyes open, they can't blink. He keeps their necks up so they can't look down. And then He forces them, كَأَنَّهُمْ إِلَى نُصُبٍ يُفِضُونَ. He forces them to run towards the thing that terrifies them. Like instead of running away from it, which is your natural impulse, He makes them run towards it. And again, every description of punishment in the Quran is a response to something that used to happen in this world. What did they used to do? They used to hear those warnings about what's coming, and they used to run in the opposite direction. They used to run, or they would run towards it laughingly. Oh, you want to punish us? Okay, let me do more. Is this going to burn too? So this, if I do this, I'm going to go to hell? Oh, okay, let me do it 2 times more. Those people who like to, when they're in trouble, they like to get in more trouble, right? Like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done what? Drop this? Okay, so they enjoyed it. They love that defiance. That's actually, the word for that is atiyah. in Arabic, like or ati, a person who enjoys being defiant, right? So this is the anticipation of something terrible coming. Now let's talk a little bit about the word ya layta. It comes from the word layta, and lata in Arabic has two meanings: sarafahu wa naqasahu haqqan lahu. Lata as a verb means when you turn away from something, and if something is diminished. If something is diminish something from you. Allah uses this word as a verb in, for example, Surah Al-Hujurat. لا يلتكم من أعمالكم شيئا. Okay, from la yalitu, he says la yalitkum, meaning Allah will not reduce you in your deeds in any way. رد الليت أي صفحة العنق. That's not so important, but layta طمع وتمن ليت الرمل ما رق منه وطال. So layta became the meaning of hope and expectation. And basically it's the word, it's different from just raw hope and expectation in that if something's already happened and you wish it didn't happen, the English equivalent would be something like crying over spilt milk. You ever heard that before? Crying over spilt milk? When you are expressing that regret, that, oh, I wish things were different. Urdu speakers here might be familiar with the word kash. Kash ke aisa hota, kash ke vaisa hota, right? That's layta. That's the equivalent of layta in Urdu. I don't know of an English equivalent of just as a word. The closest I can think of is if only. Like if only things were different, if only that didn't happen, right? That would be a close English equivalent. But that's the word layta, calling out, crying over how things have turned out, and I wish they hadn't been that way. If only things had turned out differently. So layta kalimatu tamanni ay tamanni al-husul ala shay wa huwa yata'atti min istish'ar al-nuqs. This word of hope is emanating, remember I told you the verbal meaning is diminishing, right? And turning away. So reality turned in a different direction, and you were diminished from what you could have had. And now that feeling of loss is making you say, I wish I wasn't experiencing this loss. That's where the word layta comes from. Now, in contrast, let's keep contrasting what's happening in this passage with what happened in the passage about the person on the right hand. In contrast with showing others, this person doesn't even want to face it himself. Look at the stark contrast. This person gets the book in their left hand. May Allah not make any of us of them. And they're not saying, look at my book. They're not saying, oh my God, what's in here? They're not even opening it. They're just saying, can I not get it? I wish I never got it. They didn't say, I wish I never read it. The other person uses the word reading, remember? اقرأوا كتابية. So they've read it and they want others to read it. This person, there's no mention of reading. There's just the mention of it being handed to them, and that's a tragedy enough for them. I wish I just never had to touch it. I wish I was never given this book. لم أوتى كتابية. This is a very powerful expression to describe the state of the people of the left hand and how they used to be in this world. So let's take a minute to understand that. Why is this so important that they say, I wish I was never given my book? You've probably heard the expression YOLO. You only live once. And the idea behind that is that this life is all there is. And if this life is all there is, and you are, let's say you hit the age of 40, that means you're about to have your midlife crisis. You've heard that one before? Midlife crisis means you're in the last episode of your youth. After this, you're going to be in some kind of a hospice care, or somebody's going to have to clean your diaper, and you're going to be on a drip or something. You're going to end up, in a nursing home, things like that. So the last couple of decades where you have control over your body has begun. The last episode, because this is all there is. So this becomes an incredibly depressing realization for people. As a result of that, they start behaving in certain interesting ways. They start listening to music from their teenage years. They start buying the car that has no purpose except to show off. They start engaging in, they start drinking more. They start partying more. They start pretending they're 20, right? They'll break the family. They'll go, step out on the marriage, all kinds of stuff. They'll abandon the kids. I'm just going to travel the world. I just need to experience the world. I want to experience life. I want to live my life, etc. All of this is happening because they're not worried about the consequences, the devastation they're going to leave behind. They're not worried about that. You know why? Because by the time the devastation catches up with them, they'll already be dead. This is all I get to have. Let me just have my fun, because you only live once. This is never going to come back. This is all we ever have. right? And so these people created an entire life based on the assumption that everything I'm doing, live in the moment, be yourself, be in the now, enjoy yourself, find your true happiness, connect with your true self, you do you, all this kind of crap that's now being sold to humanity. I just want to do me, I just want to do me. And then do me means I want to do really bad things, but I'm going to glorify that as saying I'm being true to myself. That's because when you're being, the idea of true to myself, let me just take off the pretty wrapping and tell you what that really means. That means I don't want to think about the fact that everything I'm doing is being surveilled, recorded, documented, and I'm answerable to someone. I don't want to think about that. I have no one watching over me. I have no authority over me. To give you an example of, somebody who is an employee and they're in the government building or their employer's building. They're in the building and they're in billable working hours, right? There's some room. They can take a coffee break. They can take a bathroom break, maybe a cigarette break for some people or whatever, right? But there are guidelines when you're in the workplace in working hours. There are certain things you cannot do because you are on the clock. Everybody understands that, right? Now imagine somebody who's on the clock and refuses to accept the fact that they are on the clock. Refuses to accept that fact. Within 10 minutes, if they want to act crazy, there are going to be consequences, right? Now, the idea that I'm trying to project onto all of us is that we are on the clock. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. We're on the clock. And Allah is watching. And there are enough human beings in this world that like to pretend that they have free reign, they can do as they please. There is no accountability for what I'm doing. And this ugly attitude of defying Allah like the greatest entity, please remember this phrase, the greatest entity to which I am answerable is me. The greatest entity to which I am answerable is me. There is nobody else I'm answerable to. In fact, I am so important, and some Muslims are starting to do this, because Christians were doing this before us. We copy pretty well. لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سُنَنَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. The Prophet ﷺ warned us, you'll end up following the ways of those who came before you. What did they do? I'm so important, I'm going to mold the concept of God to fit my needs. My Allah wouldn't judge me. Really, your Allah. Yeah, my Allah doesn't, my Allah is loving and merciful and kind. It's like, you're speaking on Allah's behalf. That's really adorable. But He speaks for Himself. It's called revelation. That's but now I'm going to tell you what my personal relationship with God is, and I dictate the terms of that relationship, because in the end, the highest authority is me, and I even get to curtail what God is to me, what Allah is to me. It's wild. It would make Fir'aun feel humble, right? Fir'aun didn't want to bring God down. Fir'aun wanted to be God. This is a next level up. This is like, no, we can keep God. He just has to serve us. He just has to serve our nafs. It's wild to me that's become the case. But that is a reality that we have to contend with, right? And because if I am the supreme, like the authority, then I also decide reality. Reality doesn't come from somewhere else. Reality comes from me. So what new terminology did we develop? This is my truth. You heard that one? This is my truth. I don't know what your truth is, but this is my truth. And then since it's my truth, and my truth is dictated by how I feel, today I feel like I'm a zebra. Tomorrow I feel like I'm a cat. The next day I feel like I'm a pronoun that hasn't been discovered by anybody yet. Right? All of what you're seeing is a result of something that started. These are just dominoes that are falling. But the first domino to fall in all of this is actually أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Allah commented on this in the Quran. Have you seen someone who takes their empty feelings and turns them into their God? Right? Surah Al-Jathiyah. That's what that is. Such a person, obviously there's no reckoning. There's no concept of I'm being recorded and I'm being watched. I don't want to deal with that. And if somebody wants to hold them responsible, let's say their mother says, hey, I think you need to stop doing that. Or their friend says, hey, I think this is too much. The moment somebody tries to rein such a person in, you know what they do? You can't tell me what to do. I'm my own person. Just let me be. You know what? Mind your own business. Right? Nobody gets to check what I'm doing. And I can run from that conversation. I can avoid it. I can slam the door, walk out. You know what? You are a negative, toxic influence in my life that is trying to bring me down. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing because I just need to get away from this toxicity. And I'm blocking you, mom. Right? Common practice. Because you want to, find your happy place. Right? And this thing is all about not having to face what you've actually done. And the moment you're about to face it, you run off. You run off. What does Allah do on Judgment Day? Hands you the book, and you can't throw it away. It's stuck on your hand. And it's open, and you got to face it. And the first thing is, really, do I have to have this book? Can I not? I lived my entire life avoiding thinking about what I'm doing. I don't want to think about it. I just want to escape my pain by doing things that I'll never have to think about. Let me just forget about what I did yesterday. I just want to get over it. I don't want to think of it. This whole mentality is being encapsulated in just, Ya laytani lam uta kitabi. Allah could have just said he's going to throw them in hell, and that would have been enough. But no, He gave us a prognosis. He gave us a deep insight into the mind of the people of the left hand, just with this phrase, And this is their lack of will to face their own consequences, the consequences of their deeds. وَلَمْ أَدْرِ مَا حِسَابِيَهْ. There's two readings of this. One reading of this is grammatically separate from the previous. This is the last bullet point here, but I'll tell you now. It's grammatically separate. What that means is I had no idea what my reckoning was going to be. I had no idea. Like, even now they're throwing an excuse out. I had no idea. Really? I didn't know what this was. That's not fair. But another reading, which I find more convincing, is that this is grammatically connected to the previous statements, ma'tuf alayhi. And what that would then mean is, I wish I had no idea what my account is, which now suggests that the book has in fact been opened. So there's an escalation. The first ayah was, okay, I wish I didn't get my book. I wasn't given the book. Now it's, I wish I didn't know what my account is, meaning now they're the deeds and what they're worth and the sins and what they're worth and the weight of them and the punishment, the suitable punishment for it, all of that's been laid out before them to see, right? وَلَمْ أَدْرِ مَا حِسَابِيَهْ. I wish I didn't know. Look at also this, the second use of diraya. You saw in the beginning, Al-Haqqah, Mal-Haqqah, Wama Adraka, Mal-Haqqah. And now Allah is bringing the same word, Walam Adri Ma Hisabiya. This is a way, I call this in Quran, within a surah, I call these anchors. These are anchors inside of a surah. The same word is repeating itself strategically to make a connection with what came before. When did it come? Do you have any clue as to what is real? And now, I wish I had no clue what my reckoning is. Connect those two dots together. What do you get? Your record is very real. The accounting is very real. Do you realize how serious that is? How powerful that event is? وَلَمْ أَدْرِ مَا حِسَابِيَهْ. Then there's a contrast. I already shared with you the insight into recklessness, but the contrast between what he's saying, this person's saying, I wish I didn't know. But what did the person on the right hand say? They said, إِنِّي ظَنَنْتُ أَنِّي مُلَاقٍ حِسَابِيَ. I was always thinking, ظَنَنْتُ, I was convinced, I was thinking, I was mentally conscious that I'm going to meet my reckoning. I'm going to meet my record, my account. I'm going to have to face it. So there's two very divergent, contrasting positions. One position is, I'm always thinking about the audit that is coming, and the other, I wish I never knew even now. Just like I never knew or cared when I was alive. It is not in this life. Even in the previous life, I didn't know, I didn't want to know. I don't know now, I don't want to know now. SubhanAllah. This is a direct one-to-one contrast. Ya laytaha kanat al-qadiyah. So I wish it, if only it, we're going to talk about what it is, if only it was decisive. If only it was decisive. Now Allah didn't say what that it is. So let's see what that it is. الضمير في يا ليتها إلى ما يعود. What does the it go back to? الأول إلى الموتة الأولى. The first interpretation is it refers to the time I died. I wish that my death the first time around was decisive. Like I wish I didn't get raised again, right? Al-Qadiya, Al-Qati'a an al-Hayat. Al-Qadiya means decisive, meaning cutting you off from the first life. وَفِيهِ إِشَارَةٌ إِلَى الْإِنْتِهَاءِ وَالْفَرَاغِ. And that would be, for this person, the end. And they're free to, they don't have to worry about it. Now, I'm just going to go into the universe. I'm just going to be particles spread across the galaxies. That's all I'm going to be, Just spread my ashes in the ocean, Because I used to love the ocean. People have those wakes, right? I used to love fishing. Bye, Frank. And Frank is back like,